The state of television ratings is an interesting study, yet there doesn't seem to be anybody that's particularly interested in looking at it. Even with all of the work that Mitch does over there at Showbuzz Daily that would make it very, very simple for journalists to, cover the story, they just don't seem interested, they don't look into it, or they just don't do it very often. But there are some rare exceptions, and usually that's at the end of the ratings year or season, when some industrious gig economy writer earns their $50 and puts together a Who Won the Year piece. And I have no evidence to support the following statement, but I really believe that sometimes they are nudged along by whichever network's actually going to win the year. And despite the fact that the traditional season isn't actually over just yet, CBS right now is taking the W. But there are larger stories here to dig into, so let's chip away at one of them and see if we can make some sense of TV ratings overall. In fact, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, hiss and foes, welcome to the Culture Casino!
The low-hanging fruit here are that stories like the Oscars losing, 50% or more of their audience and yielding just 10 million adjusted viewers after what I am certain was a struggle session with the folks over at Nielsen. Another is a fact that the year-over-year loss for the Golden Globes was substantial. So much so that they lost 2/3 of their audience, 66%. And then there's the Grammy debacle that, of course, highlighted a lovely 53% loss year over year. So I guess the takeaway from award season is that no one wants to see or hear from any of these stars anymore. No one. They often come across as entitled, poorly educated, and at times incapable of formulating an independent thought, and of course then being able to articulate said thought. Too much BS woke preaching, lying, promoting of Marxism and socialism and so many other things, so the audience has just opted out of this element of celebrity culture. Clearly. Wow. There is so much low-hanging fruit, isn't there? So let's not miss the sports numbers hitting rock bottom as well. Leading the pack, of course, on its very fast descent into hell is the NBA, as it continues to find new and better ways to turn off viewers and featuring a star who hates. Almost single-handedly, LeBron James has driven fans away from the game in droves. All recent polling data of sports fans shows a loss of support due to the NBA misinformed political messaging and its close ties to China. I anticipate even further reductions in audience support for the NBA, and the next few months' worth of polls will probably show even more dissatisfaction with the league as a whole. So I guess basketball is out. And until recently, the NFL had stayed away from appearing against its fan base, but once Roger Goodell put his foot in his mouth, the game lost viewership and it showed up even in the Super Bowl ratings in the last year. Some football players were smart enough to sidestep the politics of the situation, but some just couldn't help themselves. So football probably isn't going to head downhill real fast, but it's probably going to continue to head downhill. And we will know more about that, actually, because of the recent NFL draft ratings. That'll be available, at least the final numbers, on Tuesday. But for just Thursday, which is the first day of the draft, across the three networks, it scored 12.52 million viewers, which is pretty good. It puts the draft about 2 million viewers ahead of the Oscars. Imagine that. Now, of course, overall, it's down from last year at this point. Again, Roger hadn't planted his oversized loafer in his mouth at that point, but what are you going to do? So that left most of us fans with hockey and Major League Baseball. But not really. Or I should say, not anymore, because MLB got thrown into the whirlwind by a harebrained statement made by the Great Divider. Incidentally, that's my new name for the current occupant of the executive office of this country. I think it's applicable, and you're free to use it if you'd like to. Again, the Great Divider. Of course, you could say that about many people now, actually. But anyway, as many of you have seen, obviously, from a chart that I presented early on a couple weeks ago, favorability in the in Major League Baseball went from 47% to 12% with folks on the right side of the aisle. It also fell significantly with the folks that were in the center. So this means that America's pastime is now just above the putrid NBA in third place. The question is, will the move have an effect over the long haul? Will that move have an effect over the long haul? Will it hurt attendance or TV? Let's look back at this in a month, and maybe a little longer, maybe a few months, and see what the answers are to those questions. We will also have to look back at data from 2 years or more ago to see what the ratings used to be, because last year for baseball it would be really hard to tell. Okay, so wow, more low-hanging fruit. News is down. All news. CNN can't find a buyer right now because AT&T desperately wants to cut loose that little gem. People are just tired of the faux outrage, and they're being confronted with one of the oldest cable news networks actually being caught airing propaganda and admitting to it for an extended period of time. Years. And they're gearing up for more, obviously, with the climate change garbage that will be another grab at your freedoms. So news? Nobody cares. Now we get to the networks. This is the fruit that's a bit higher on the tree. So maybe it's better. Except it's not. The CW, of course, is a network. How they're still considered a network blows my mind. Has remained a joke in its primetime hours since the 4th season of the Arrowverse. And that's largely because it's heavily tilted towards a Tumblr audience, right? And that group of folks, they easily lose interest in things, plus they don't buy stuff. So the rating scores for the other networks have slowly slid downhill, and it's kind of an inevitability when you cannibalize every effort at growth with streaming options out there, and you provide clips on other streaming platforms that are clearly your best efforts. And of course, those efforts, they fall flat with who they're trying to reach, or they give the audience enough information that they decide that they no longer need to consume your product. At least not the product you're currently offering. Either way, you're making no headway, which isn't good, at least not as far as business is concerned. So here we have it. CBS comes out on top, as I said at the beginning of the video. Even with their abysmal rating numbers, I guess the king of trash is still the king. But there are a few things to take notice of, and these are the real fruits we were looking for all along. And there are two of them. One, sports, specifically the NBA and MLB, has for the first time taken a back seat to regular network and cable programming during the course of most weeks. This is actually unprecedented, especially with the special event games and the playoffs, because they can't even beat wrestling. Sportico actually did a really decent article showing the declining interest in TV sports and pretty much all TV viewership over the course of the last 3 years. They were trying to mitigate some of the narrative that they didn't like, which was your politics and agenda are driving down your product and its consumability, and they didn't do a very good job. So the article overall is very enlightening, and it has a lot of numbers and charts and things that I appreciate in it, and we'll share some here. But the broadcast rights deals for these products, I'm talking about sports specifically, should be scrutinized in the future by every investor, because if this trend continues, you're losing 5 to 6% of your viewership year over year, at least over the course of the years covered in this article. And where is the money going to come from paying more in these rights fees with each deal? It's not going to be the ad revenues. So I like charts and I like graphs and I like numbers, so here's a few of them. As stated, the TV season beginning September 21 of 2020, that would be the most recent television season, which is coming to a close here real quickly. There were a total of 78.4 million viewers that had tuned in to broadcast television programming, at least in prime time. That's down a total of 22%, for the same period, of course, from 3 years ago. That's a 22% loss of audience. The fall off with everything is across the board. You can see that for large part across the most surprising thing, sports, and if more specifically, the NFL. This all coincides with a drop in the coveted 18 to 49 demo of over 5%. They lost 5% of the advertising audience. This is at a time when most people were at home. They were homebound. And yet they still avoided television. So where are they going? This is the biggest fruit of them all. And it's the second most important point here. Or maybe it's the first most important point. YouTube is destroying when it comes to ad revenue. It's destroying traditional media. It's the only direct-to-consumer model that's unbeatable, and the numbers prove it out. In a story that I covered first in a 6-minute daily last week, YouTube advertising revenue jumped 48% to just over $6 billion, with a B. YouTube continues to grow across all segments and is, one of pretty much every element of Alphabet's holdings that is succeeding. And my takeaway is different than that of the carefully crafted narrative excuses that are brought out by the likes of Forbes and others. They insist that the erosion of the audience is not audience exhaustion, brought on by agenda-driven garbage from every form of escapism. Instead, they say it's a move to direct-to-consumer products like Disney Plus that is bringing about the dismal ratings. The numbers don't bear that out. And I think they're missing the YouTube draw and its continued growth as more and more people can engage with real entertainment and discussion. The most compelling thing with YouTube is the sheer volume of intriguing content for everyone. And it's seemingly endless. It's got a huge variety of channels, as you're watching one right now. If you truly want diverse entertainment, YouTube is the place, at least for now, because there's always someone else, like Odyssey, and maybe some others. So after this long video, full of lots of information, what do you think? Will we continue to see declines in viewership, total viewership that is, as far as television is concerned? Is the majority of the loss of viewership attributable to something other than agenda-driven programming? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll try to get to them quickly. And of course, thank you for your support of this channel, because as we continue to claw past 2K subscribers here on YouTube, I genuinely appreciate everything that you guys do for me and for this channel. But don't forget to support other independent creators out on this platform as they continue to provide great content for all of us. And in closing, as I always do, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.